All right, now, another thing that's going to help you with handgun selection, and just it's going to help you make sense of the whole gun culture, is to learn about the various size categories that handguns fit into. And there are 4 primary sizes. So here they are. The first size, the biggest ones, are full-size handguns. You can say full-size or you could say duty guns, but they're full-size, full-frame handguns. Moving down, we have the compact category. These are slightly shorter and slightly less long and slightly less tall than the full-size handguns. And therefore, they, of course, have shorter barrels and less magazine capacity. The next category down is the subcompact size. Subcompact, of course, means below compact. These are even still shorter than the compact, and they are less tall than the compact, once again resulting in shorter barrels, shorter sight radiuses, and all that entails, and a less of a magazine capacity. And you'll notice a J-frame revolver fits firmly into the subcompact category. Whether or not it has a grip extension, this pistol does, this one does not. They're still both subcompacts. Moving down from there, we have micro guns. Some people call them mouse guns. I prefer micro gun. These are weapons that fire generally very small cartridges out of very, very small frames. So to keep things simple, I'm just going to recommend that you never go below the subcompact category. Now, that's not going to be possible for everybody. And so if you already carry a Ruger LCP and you're sticking with it and you're not going to change, I'm not trying to be insulting here. Just looking at the data, I'm telling you that the best balance to strike with survivability is at this line or forward. And so there you have it. Well, that's right. The first challenge with this category is that these are not official terms. These are terms that handgun users have had to come up with over the years to describe the various categories. Now, some manufacturers play nice and they accurately define their handguns by these 4 categories. Others do not. Okay, so you'll have guns that are actually subcompact being sold as micro guns, or compacts that are being called subcompact. There's really no official guidelines for these. Just understand that you can't trust what a manufacturer says, because they're always going to want to make you think that their guns are smaller than they really are. Because, as we've talked about so many times now, the smaller the handgun, the more mass appeal it has. So that's the first challenge with the sizing chart, is that these are not technical descriptions. Now, that said, I do have some rough guidelines that you can follow when using this 4-category classification system. For example, full-size guns typically have barrels that are 4.5 inches long or longer. Compact handguns, if we move down one size, typically have barrels that are between 3 3/4 of an inch and 4 1/4 inches. Subcompact handguns usually have barrels that are between 3 3/4 of an inch, whereas micro guns, their barrels are usually shorter than 3 inches, often just 1.5 inches or even 2 inches long. And as I alluded to in the first challenge, the second challenge with this system is that it can be manipulated by people who want you to think that their full-size handgun is really a compact, or subcompact is typically the biggest buzzword in concealed carry. I think attaching subcompact to a gun probably boosts its sales by 10 or 20%. And so people do that. And so you really do have to look at the exact dimensions. Compare a gun like the Glock 26, for example, or the Springfield XD subcompact, which is accurately described. Take a look at those measurements and compare the new guns that are coming out to those. For example, most people would never even guess that a J-frame revolver fits into the subcompact category. They think it's a micro gun. But here's the thing. you can get a more powerful cartridge and you can hold twice as many of them in literally the exact same size of a pattern as you can with a Glock 26. It's the same size of weapon. And so that's why it's important to categorize these weapons using this 4-category classification system between full-size, compact, subcompact, and microgun. So let me just run through this list with you with just a little bit more detail. I want to arm you with as much information as possible. So full-size handguns are typically handguns that are carried by police officers and military personnel going into combat. They have the longest of the barrels, the greatest ammunition capacities. Essentially, they're the best handguns. I mean, if we're looking at the specific jobs that handguns do, these guns do them the best. Full-sized handguns. Compact handguns came about because of the increasing popularity of concealed carry. And so you'll find typically, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but typically a compact handgun has a barrel and a magazine capacity that is about 20% less than a full-size handgun. And therefore it comes with drawbacks that are equally opposed. All right, so that you might find that they have 20% more felt recoil, or that they're 20% less accurate than a full-size handgun. Subcompact category is about the same depreciation as from compact going up to full size. With subcompact handguns, you'll find, since we cut the pinky off, however, in most situations, as you can see with this one that does not have a grip extension, some of these disadvantages are even more noticeable. So whereas the compact handgun might only be 20% less comfortable or less accurate than a full size, these guns may be 30% less comfortable or 30% less accurate than the compact size. And so we're looking at a big drop from full size to subcompact, perhaps half as combat effective as a full size handgun is. And then microguns at the extreme end of the spectrum don't even begin to compare to full-size handguns. A totally different tool for a totally different purpose. Now, unfortunately, as we said, you can't bend reality around yourself. And so in terms of stopping human threats who are trying to kill you, these guns are just simply objectively ineffective at that. It's definitely not saying that it can't be done or that there may not be certain types of criminals who will turn tail and flee at even just the sight of a microgun, but that's not something that we want to bank our lives on. And so there is the 4 categories of handguns in a nutshell.